Okay, Mayor, we're ready.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Roll call.
Yes, please.
Attendance. Roll call. Mr. Clark,
Present.
Ms. Davis, Mr. Roy, Mr. Franham,
Present.
Mr. Garrett,
Present.
Mr. Hassan,
Present.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Dennis Williams,
Here.
Mr. Marion Williams.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. Hereby call this meeting to order. And Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, sir, we can. Where's your flag? Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Not in the shadow. I'm not in the shadow, am I?
Yes, you are.
Yes, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
after the pledge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bobby Williams is trying to log in.
All right, they'll get him in.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, I pledge allegiance
Yes,
to the flag
the flag.
of the United States of America, to the republic
Which is
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Smell, you gonna do the invocation?
I am. All right, gracious God, we give you thanks on today for your presence and your provision. Lord God, we ask you to guide us with your gentle hand. Give us wisdom, give us direction, give us understanding. This we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Madam Clerk, let's do this in terms of the agenda items. Let's take items 4 and 5, and then we'll go 3, and then 2, and we'll close with item number 1. 4 and 5, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
All right. If we can pause for just a moment, and let's see if we can't get Commissioner Bobby Williams in. In fact, let's just proceed. We'll work on getting them in while we're
Commissioner Panoa is also trying to sign in.
okay. We're gonna get both of them in. All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item number 4 is a motion to approve the master agreement for security and fire alarm services provided by Johnson Controls International for 9 Augusta Utility Facilities location.
Motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'm coming to you. All right, so I got a motion and a second. All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 9th, Engineering Services Chairman.
Yeah, I got no problem, but can I get a little bit more insight on what we're doing with Johnson Control? What is this again?
All right, so Johnson Controls again is this is a master agreement for fire protection. That's what this is. And this is again for 9 Augusta Utilities facilities. Johnson Controls is in the business of building management systems and also fire protection and security controls. That's a standard agreement. In this case, it's a master agreement for them to provide those services to the city of Augusta.
Well, when I saw the agenda item and talk about master agreement, I didn't know what the master agreement was, but when you say a fire control, I'm trying to relate it to the fire department and what they actually be doing. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't understand. Maybe everybody else does, but I don't.
yeah. No, they're in the business of building management, fire protection systems. They do all of that type of work.
Video surveillance, that sort of thing.
Yeah. They do all of that across the country, quite frankly, across the globe. And in this case, we're enlisting their services at our utility building.
It is also for alarm.
Say again, Wayne?
They also use it for alarms.
That's correct.
Okay, well, like I said, when I saw master's agreement, I didn't understand it. I didn't never. All the history didn't get the master's part, but
Yeah.
I got no question about it. I can support that.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. I'll tell you a story about Johnson Controls on another day. And it's a good story, though. All right. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy,
Yes.
Mr. Franum,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias, Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. You're a yes, Mr. Sias?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Dennis Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Marion Williams.
Yes.
Okay. That motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Madam Clerk, in the words of the commissioner from the first, this is to the commissioner from the ninth. In a former life, when I was the lead project engineer for Monsanto's biotech plant over there, Johnson Controls installed the building management system and other building control systems for us.
Okay.
They do good work.
Okay. You can attest to that. So
I can attest to that.
that's good information, sir.
I think they call that, I can vouch for them.
Yeah. Okay. So we're headed to the next item, number 5.
Number 5.
Okay. Motion to approve award of construction contract to Reef Construction Company in the amount of $3,447,514.40 for resurfacing various roads as requested by the Augusta Engineering Department. Award is contingent upon receipt of signed documents and proper bonds relative to bid 2164.
Commissioner
So
from
moved.
the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think,
I'm coming to you. Commissioner from the 9th.
okay, I think I had that item pulled for a couple of reasons. I've got no problem with the construction work that Reed's been doing and the paving of that. My question is when someone can call and have Reed to move a worker through a boss of a commissioner gave me some heartburn. And I don't want to approve contracts for anybody that don't go through the process. There's a way of handling anything. But that was my concern. I mean, it really wasn't about the contractor itself, but the relationship that must be, could be either formed or already formed, in my opinion, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not against the contractor, but the process that happened before, I hope would never happen again to anybody without going through the proper challenge, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. I understand. We've got a motion and a second to approve it. And you, the chairman of engineering services, concurs with approval, but would like a little bit more background input going forward. All right.
Well, not necessarily going forward. I mean, I think the Reed is not a new contractor with Augusta. They've done a lot of work for a lot of years here, not just them. But, I mean, I can name several that's been here for a long time. And I say again, I think I got no issue with their work. But if we have a relationship with that company and we're gonna approve $3 million some odd dollars for a company to come in and they can move people around because someone called. I still got heartburn with that, and I'm gonna probably have it for a while. I'm just being clear about it. So if you want to go ahead and approve this contract, I don't want to hold it up for that. And my one vote, I wouldn't hold it up anyway. So I wouldn't hold up a company who's been doing a good job. But I need us as a body to understand the relationship that our authority has with a company that's making millions of dollars off of Silver Augusta. So you got a motion and second to approve. I'm going to vote for it as well. So I think this need to be brought to the light, though.
Can everyone mute your microphones? There's tremendous background noise. If you can mute your microphones until Madam Clerk calls on you to vote. Commissioner Hassan, Commissioner Bobby Williams, if you don't mind, just out of courtesy. All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Mr. Clark,
Yes.
okay, Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy, Mr. Franum,
Yes, ma'am.
is Mr. Fenoy back? Okay. He's still muted, Mr. Mayor.
He is.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Hassan,
Yes.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Marion Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item, number
3.
3, motion to approve conducting special call legal meetings before each regular call meeting of the commission. I think the designated time was 12:30. Mr. Mayor, was that?
Yes, ma'am. 12:30.
12:30. To standardize the special call legal meeting.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
All right, Commissioner from the 6th.
I got my hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's doing just for this times that we're in right now, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. All right, sir.
Commissioner from the 4th.
My question's been answered.
Thank you, sir. All right. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Franum,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Marion Williams. You did, sir?
Yes.
Okay. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 2.
Yes.
Augusta Housing and Community Development to introduce the COVID-19 Small Business Relief Program and seek commission support.
Motion to approve.
Sir.
Second.
Well,
All right, Commissioner.
they beat me out.
Okay.
Was that Mr. Bobby Williams seconding that?
Mayor Pro Tem motion, Bobby Williams.
Okay.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you got me.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah. Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, when this was last week, I think many of my colleagues know we ended up losing the quorum, and we assume we have voted to approve it. But Commissioner Sias has some caveats that also was with that, and that was, providing that HUD approved it, send off the HUD, and HUD comes back and is approved by HUD at that particular time. That was Commissioner, I'm paraphrasing, so if I'm in error in what I'm saying, please let me know. But that was part of the motion last week, and just Dave was just saying motion to approve, but that was a part of that last week. So do we need to make a substitute motion to attach that to it, or should that be understood?
No, we can just amend that. But I mean, one of the concerns that I have, I see your hand, Commissioner Sias. one of the concerns that I have as we continue to talk about this is we're 6 weeks into when we first started this conversation. We need to move as expeditiously as possible to get resources to people, businesses in this community. And at the end of the day, you know, we've turned this into a loan program. So let's just move forward with it and get it done and move on. Commissioner from the 4th.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If I may suggest to my colleague from the 6th, no amendments are required. If I believe they've already sent a draft. Once we have voted on this expectation, they've already sent a draft up for them to review. So no amendments, in my view, is unnecessary.
Well, let me kind of respond to that, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so hold on before you do that. All right, what I'd like to see happen is a revise of the paperwork that the businesses are going to be submitted. Let's make sure we get that sent out because I don't think we've seen that at this point. And I think that's a critical path item for those of us who are on this call. All right, Commissioner from the 9th.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with everything you've been said, but when you're talking about the businesses, I guess my question is who decide on which business and who's on first and what's on second, so to speak. There's some, I mean, a lot, every business is suffering in this epidemic we're dealing with, but if we're gonna designate, how do we qualify those who do HUD, do what program, and then if we don't get it back and we don't see it, how do we be fair about it?
Well, again, I haven't seen the latest version. I can't speak to that, but I would hope that it be a similar process that we talked about 3 weeks ago, where there was a small group of people. We had somebody from the banking industry. We had somebody from the business community, and then of course our staff. I'm hoping that that's still what's going to move forward. But again, I think the goal right now is to approve it. You lost the quorum last week. That's the critical piece. And like I said, making sure that we get those dollars into people's hands as quickly as possible. We cut checks on Friday. And every Friday we ought to be cutting checks, sending money to those businesses that have been vetted and approved. And in order for that to happen, they need to have all been submitted by any business that's chosen need to have that information sent into finance by Wednesday at noon so that a check can get cut and go out the door by Friday. That's a critical path item moving forward.
And I agree with that. But the problem is, Mr. Man, you know, when you talk about cutting checks, now you just said if you get the check in the business have it been processed by Wednesday and the check will be cut Friday. But which business is going to be processed is my question. How do we determine who's on first and what's on second? We got a limited amount of money, and if it's unlimited, it don't make no difference because all the business is going to be able to come to the table. But a certain business is going to be come to the table, and everybody's hurting, whether it be large or small. So I just want to make sure that we're not opening up a floodgate here and don't know where it's going to stop at, because it's going to stop somewhere now.
Yeah,
if people that need it, they need it, and I'm willing to do it today if possible. But I want to be able to be fair about who gets what.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. Let me go to the administrator's office, and hopefully they're going to give us some clarity around the documentation. All right, Chair recognizes Administrator Sim.
Mayor, Commissioners, staff is ready to talk regarding this matter. Director Hawthorne Welcher, as well as his team, there in the breakout session, ready to come in.
Okay. All right, let's get them in here then. All right. Director Welcher, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. I hear a lot of questions. I think the first question that I will tend to has to do with the application inception, review, and vetting approval process. We could bring your back attention to your booklets, and there were 2 documents that were provided. One, of course, just was a 2-page summation of what the program is, eligibility requirements, and then the second attachment had to do with the application. It is a condensed application that also speaks to requirements of those things that's necessary. What we anticipate, and we can provide this information as well, we anticipate upon inception of a complete.
Be careful on the latitude, longitudes. Just
Can
about all.
everyone please mute your microphones? Please mute your microphones. Commissioner Sonoy, please mute your microphone. Thank you. Continue, Director Welcher.
Okay, so upon inception of a complete application packet, you're looking at a complete 14-day review, vet, approval process, of which will then move to a recommendation period, with our commission. Now, when you talk about there is a committee that is comprised and made up of members of 2 financial institutions, a deputy director from the city of Augusta, also made up of a member, a local business owner, as well as made up of also CAC. So there is a 5-member loan committee that is already in place, a 5-member loan committee that has already gone through a process of looking over our documentation, what our rubrics is. The rubrics is also attached to the application submission of which you have a part of. So what we tried to do was make it a fair process, a process wherein we had a condensed inception as well as a condensed review and vet process as well. Because as you indicated, it's not about the money, but it is about being sure that we're able to sort of get it out, to those persons who's eligible for it. So you have a 2-page summary. We're here to answer any additional questions that you have.
All right, Commissioner from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I heard Mr. Welcher, and I understand what he's saying. My question still stands, though. How do we know? How do we determine? We need to approve this, and my vote certainly going to vote to approve it. But how do we distinguish who's qualified? Because every business person now going to tell you they're affected by this epidemic, and you know that. And every business person probably has, especially the small business people like the barbers and those kind of things. The retail store is going to be affected. But if you got the small businesses who still been trying to get in business for 15 years, but you got somebody that's been in business for a good while, and they feeling the pinch now. I'm just trying to figure out how do we do this. That's not my expertise. That's why we got the director like Mr. Welcher, who make the big bucks, who's supposed to know how to do this. And I'm asking them just to share with me how it's going to be done. You got a loan committee. A loan committee scares me when I walk in the room with a loan committee. I know the answer's always been when I went in the room with a loan committee. So, I mean, we need to be real about this and say, these are the guidelines, and I think Mr. Welcher is going to handle that. But I think this bite ought to wanted to come back to this, like Commissioner Sayers said, so we'll know without just going out and then it's done. May not make sense to nobody, but that's my.
But what I will add real quickly, what I will add to you is a small business development loan program is something that you have already had. The commission, Augusta, Georgia, has had a small business development loan program that's already been in existence. So from a COVID perspective, what we've done, to your point, we have not taken the same program. We've taken the same program and we've condensed the requirements based on the pandemic of where we are. And some of those, we'll just go over a couple of eligibility. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you asked a question about who's eligible, what type of costs are eligible, what are the basic terms. So just allow us to go over a couple of those things. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but you have this, Commissioner Williams, this 2-page document that you have that was a part of your booklet, but this is what we're reading off of. And so, like I said, we've condensed the program. We know that it's tight. We know that it's compliant. based on CDBG guidelines. So we feel very good and confident about this program. This program also has been one that is sort of right now being modeled from a HUD perspective. Our HUD regional office is asking other cities to reach out to us based on this condensed program that we put forward. So allow us to just go over some of the eligibility requirements per your concern.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Williams, Daniel Evans here. Just want to tell you, your concerns are spot on. And to Mr. Welcher's point, that's how we designed it. So you're going to talk about 4 basic components of eligibility. It has to be a locally operated business, obviously in Augusta, Richmond County. We're asking that they provide 2020 calendar year first quarter financial statements so that the members of the review committee can see the documented, demonstrated financial need that they are experiencing with a comparison to a previous quarter of a similar nature. So that's where we meet the requirement. The federal government said that you have to show you're responding to the pandemic. We are asking that they provide the ability to create or retain a job, which is how they maintain compliance with the basic eligibility of the federal funding. And we're asking that they be a business that is in good legal standing with the city of Augusta. So that just means not in arrears on taxes, up to date on licensure, conforming with zoning and land use requirements, so that we as a government aren't supporting any business financially that is not operating within the rules of this commission that's set forth in the code. So those are your 4 major touch points. And to highlight the point Mr. Welcher made to your concern, Mr. Commissioner Williams, about a loan committee. So we have completely divorced underwriting guidelines from this program. This is an emergency response to provide economic relief. So we are not checking credit scores. We are not going through a traditional underwriting process like we would for a small business loan. We are simply trying to see documented, demonstrable need, ensure the ability of the recipient of funds to meet the federal law, and expediting the disbursement of those funds accordingly.
Mr. Mayor, I gave my question. I got some answers. Still think this body need to know when that process has been done to come back to this body, like Commissioner Sides said. But it's already been a motion to approve it. So I'm waiting on to take the vote.
Mr. from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I could be in error on this, but I know early on, was this one of the in this program here, did it have the DMB request as well? Mr. Welcher, or y'all removed that?
Sorry. I couldn't hear you, Commissioner.
Refer to the Dun and Bradstreet request.
Did you have the Dun and Bradstreet, or did y'all take that out?
No, that's still a part of it, sir.
Why?
That is a requirement for any entity to receive federal funds, including through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, that they be registered and have a Dun and Bradstreet number.
Well, I would tell you from my experiences when barbershops and beauty shops and being a small business myself, when what we're talking about let's go with small and super small. Super small business, the barbershops and beauty shops, very few of them, probably less than 5%, I think, is going to have that. And so if those are some of the persons that have done and Bradstreet this criteria, a lot of them won't be able to get served through this process.
We'll go back and take a look at that. I think from our perspective, we try to, it's one of those compliant measures. It's one that also has been tested. You are familiar with our Seeds for Life program. Of that, you have, some hair salons and beauty shops as well. That was not an issue that we encountered. However, if we go back and look and see where it's not of a regulatory compliant need, we will move to take it out.
And how soon do you assume that HUD is going to give you confirmation on the program?
So with that, I think where we are with your approval today, and based on what you all approved last week, it allows for us to be able to take the plan, the program, submit it to our HUD regional office in Atlanta to allow them to sort of look over it, understanding that they have to provide an official response within a 30-day time period, but that still is not an official approval. Your official approval, what we're waiting on right now, all over the country, state and locally, we're waiting on instructions to be able to submit. And this is something that's coming directly from Washington. They are providing instructions in regards to exactly how to amend your consolidated and your annual plans to include this COVID money. So in talking directly with the director of the HUD regional office in Atlanta, talked to her directly on last week. And what she indicated is that they are hurriedly in the process trying to provide these instructions for submission. They're actually, the issue that they're having right now is the issue with the fact of making sure that once we provide submissions, application submission, to be able to move forward with this funding, that their financial IT systems can keep pace with that. So in my mind, I'm anticipating from a submission, I'm anticipating a 30-day turnaround whenever we're able to make that submission.
How you define the submission? Applications or requests, or the information you got in hand from the city?
Well, what I identify from a submission is a instructional submission that will come down just as other notices have come down from HUD, which we have not received. However,
okay.
So that's what as an official submission. However, with your approval, we still have the latitude to be able to take this plan today and say, hey, our commission has deemed favorable of this program. We are providing this to our HUD regional office in Atlanta. We will allow for you all to be able to review that and make comments in regards to HUD's compliance of the plan that we've submitted. We know that the plan that we have is compliant with HUD. We feel very confident about it. Now, keep in mind, Augusta, Georgia, at any given time can sort of move forward. Augusta, Georgia can move forward.
Based on what? Well, so let me slow it down, Hawthorne. Let me ask you a quick question.
Okay.
In approving this today, what's your next step?
My next step of approval today is providing this plan to our HUD regional office via email.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Mr. from the 4th.
Oh, I'm good, sir. I'm just waiting to vote.
Okay. Madam Clerk. Okay, hold on a second. Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the good information that Hawthorne and his group have brought forward today. One last thing that I have, you were talking about cutting checks on each Friday. Would it be possible to get a list of the businesses that this is helping each Friday?
Well, I think all of that's possible and would be a reasonable expectation. I'm not convinced based on what I just heard that we're going to ever get to the point of helping anybody.
Hawthorne, is that possible?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, once we can provide that, once we make the commitment and checks are flowing, we definitely can provide that on a weekly basis. Not a problem.
Thanks, sir.
I'm going to state this for the record. Otherwise, I'd be remiss in my role. And that is, this has been 6 weeks where I'm effectively talking about this. And we've gone from taking general fund dollars to this, what I would call a very complicated process. We pivoted from general fund dollars to using federal dollars, which again, the issues, real or otherwise, around gratuitous clause, quote, are effectively eliminated. At the end of the day, what we heard from our business community with the survey that was conducted, all of which you have seen, to include HCD, is that cash flow and operating expense money today is critical path. And if what I'm hearing is we're going to be waiting another 30 days to get resources into people's hands, then, people are back to work now. They're going to be back to work 30 days from now. We need to figure out if the commission's voting on this and approving this, then we need to mobilize whatever group you've got and get them in a room and move expeditiously with putting up on a website for people to apply right now and get those vetted. A 14-day vetting process is too long. And again, you're talking about most businesses during that survey process said our operating expenses are roughly about $5,000 a month. And so whatever the pot of money is, to the commissioner from the ninth perspective, we need to move on and get dollars into people's hands. They don't need a DMB number. They need to fill out a 2-page application and say, this is where I'm hurting at, whether it's a restaurant, hair salon, barbershop, and we need to get those dollars into their hands as quickly as possible. Madam Clerk, I'm ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sonoy,
Yes.
Mr. Pranum,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Science,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Marion Williams. Mr. Mayor, is he muted?
Yes, and Ms. Bunner was muted.
Okay. That motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Next item number 1, discuss requiring that face coverings or masks be worn in the City of Augusta government buildings during the COVID-19 public health emergency and recovery.
Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, sir. This is an issue that is proposed to go for 60 days with the limited time frame on it. And it is to protect our workers and the public. And one of the things is as we know, we've heard from Washington, D.C. to Richmond County, COVID-19 can get you at any time and anything who you are. And we now know that if you're going in the White House West Wing, you got to be wearing a face mask or face covering. So this proposal is not to infringe on anybody, but to ensure that for the next 60 days, as a minimum, that we have some kind of protection plan in place. And this is for the municipal building as mandatory only, for the municipal building. That means we have the mask that we can provide to anybody who don't have one. And secondly, if someone says, well, I'd rather not come in, but I still want to do my city business, they can do that online from the smartphone, tablet, or computer. So we're not killing anybody's rights, but simply protecting everybody that's involved here. The municipal building is one of our most public buildings where we have interaction with folks. So I won't belabor that point. It's just this is a 60-day proposal, and the marshal will run that at the entrance. I move to approve.
I second it.
All right, Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm for wanting everybody to be protected and nobody to get sick. I want to make that abundantly clear. But I am also concerned about constitutional rights, and I think that we're touching on a delicate matter there. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Okay, Commissioner from the 1st.
Mr. Mayor, I want to, if the motion hadn't been second that Commissioner Science made, I want to go ahead and second that motion. But, we are required to wear seat belts. And that's for the protection of everybody that's in the vehicle. We are required to wear helmets if we are on a motorcycle. So there are a lot of requirements that are placed upon us for self-protection and also of the protection of the citizen in general. So when someone comes into the municipal building, unless we are absolutely sure that they don't have not infected with the virus, we need to do what in the health profession they call universal precautions, and that is to treat everybody as if they are infected, so everybody can protect themselves and protect the people that are around them. So I support the motion, and that's my piece.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This epidemic is really bad, and we know that, and lives are still being lost. And I think the commission is trying to do what it can to prevent any further loss of life. But we can't just we can't just rule on the municipal building. All our facilities belong to the city. Now we're gonna require someone to go in with a mask. Then we got to get all our facilities got to be equipped. If we're gonna do that, we can't have some we care about and some we don't. We got to make sure. Now, I still think it's too early for the employees to go back to work. That was my opinion, and I still stick to that. I still think this thing is still spreading. We don't know where it is. We don't know who got it. Commissioner Fenard talked about motorcycle helmets. In South Carolina, you can ride a motorcycle with nothing on if you want to. You ain't got to have no helmet. I mean, it just depends on where you are. But I understand that the law says about seatbelts and that kind of thing, but the government who's going to operate, we got to protect everybody or nobody. If we go, what about the judicial center? What about the branches that the water department, not only the water department, the tax commission office? We got to protect everybody if we're going to do this. So how do we manage just to protect one and not everybody else? What cost is that gonna occur to do that? If we are that afraid, why are we opening the government back up as early as we are? If we saying it is, we don't know where it is, we can't see it, we can't feel it. We got to take precaution. We tell the employees to come back in the building and be ready to work with one another and work with the public. So I can't see how we can specify the courthouse. If we're going to do it, we got to be uniform. In our rec centers, everything that we're doing with this government had to be under the same rules. We ain't no pick and choosing what we like and what we don't like. Now the commission meeting online, we screaming our meeting. We're not going into a public facility. So if we're going to wear masks, I ain't got no problem with that. But we got to be uniform. Everybody got to have them. We got to protect all our workers, not just some of them. So how do we do that, Mr. Mayor?
All right, I think we're going to hear about that in just a second. Commissioner, we're going to recognize Administrator Sims.
Commissioners, some of the things that you all brought up are some similar concerns that staff also have. The first thing you mentioned about was requiring only for the municipal building. We also see that as a challenge because we have other buildings and not requiring employees or guests coming to our other buildings, not requiring them to wear a mask and create an inconsistency. We also recognize that if offered masks, we think our employees as well as our guests will wear the mask. If we put in a place or requiring masks, that might incite or make the things worse for people, and it create a hostile or a tense situation for our staff, as well as inconsistency. If we have just the municipal building and we don't have our other building, employees might have a concern about why they're not being asked to wear masks, or it would give the perception potentially that we're showing some type of more appropriate treatment for municipal building employees versus other employees in our other facilities. So we have some concerns about that as well. While we all do know that the virus is spreading, we all do know that wearing face masks or face covering help prevent the spread of coronavirus. Again, my recommendation remains the same as far as strongly recommending face masks or some face covering.
Mr. Mayor, can I reply?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sims, I think you come up with this plan about phasing in the opening up this government. What's your recommendation? What's your recommendation on all our facilities, and how do we protect everybody, even the courts and everything else? What's your recommendation on that?
Well, Commissioner, that was part of our plan as far as phasing in. We know that all of us potentially could get the coronavirus. We recognize that the only way that we can do it is be very proactive. We also recognize currently now the social distancing is in place. So we're trying our best to phase in approach. We don't want all of our employees back at the same time. And that was the reason why we had the return to work plan for a stage phased in approach. We also recognize as far as with our buildings, making sure that buildings stay clean, frequent cleaning. So these are some of the things that we're doing right now. As far as, go ahead.
Yeah, but y'all, my question is about the masks for the courthouse. I mean, for the municipal building. What's your recommendation for all our facilities? Will it be rec? Because if we're gonna phase them back in, the rec's gonna be open up and people are gonna be coming in, children and seniors and all this other stuff that we got to deal with in our rec department once we open it back up. How do we do that? Do you recommend just doing the courthouse now and then phasing in the other one with these masses? I'm trying to get your recommendation. That's what I'm trying to do.
Sure, I hear you. Well, the recreation center and the senior center was always our last phase because we knew that involved a mass of people. So that was our last phase. We also recognize that we have to go, closely monitor each step. So the recreation centers was in phase 3 in June. As far as your question regarding masks, it was always strongly recommended to wear masks as well as to be able to provide masks for our employees or our visitors or guests. But as far as requiring, that was the concern that we all had regarding making masks or face covering a requirement. That was never the recommendation. That was always about strongly recommending masks or face covering.
So my final question is that you recommending that we just do the courthouse and not the other branches of the government that we had to frequent. Is what I'm trying to hear from you. Are you recommend doing everybody? When we do one, it's like the children, you got to feed them all. You can't give some of them food and the rest of them, you just let them drink water. So what's your recommendation for that, Mr. Jobs?
Well, if we recall with our the judge extended the courts as far as opening until June, middle of June. So the courts are still as far as closed unless it's certain circumstances. But as far as our buildings, we are recommending our employees come back May 18th. That will be the second phase. The third phase will be recreation and parks, as well as our senior centers, as well as our library. As far as the
mask, I'm talking about the masks now.
The mask, again, we are strongly recommending people wear masks, but we're not saying or implying it as a requirement. We are strongly recommending. And that is consistent with the state. It's not a requirement, it's strongly recommended.
So I'm trying to get my answer, yes or no. Do we do everybody, or we just do? Recommending is one thing. We're talking about now 60 days doing the courthouse. I'm saying that you can't just do the courthouse. You got to do everybody if you're going to do it. I'm not in support of that at all because I think it's too early. But my question to you is, you recommending just doing the courthouse right now, and then would you recommend doing? Did you recommend all our facilities then right now?
I recommend if you go to enter our facilities, you have on a face mask or a covering. But
That's your recommendation to the commission. I'm saying.
Recommend personally if a person comes.
No. I'm talking about not personally. I'm trying to get you to see what as our administrator, you telling the commission that we need to do this for all our facilities, right?
Yeah, I would not suggest singling out one facility for wearing masks. We have several facilities. If it's the will of the commission for people to wear masks or make it a requirement, I would want all our facilities, people to be strongly recommended wearing masks, not just one facility, one building.
Okay, well,
All right.
I couldn't hear you, sir.
No, I was saying to the mayor that I'm finished with my question. That I talked about the altercation with social discipline. People are getting an altercation in a lot of cities. If we require some people to do it and some don't. Some have masks, some won't. Some saying gonna put it on their face. Some don't say they don't need it. Some say they don't want it. Some say they ain't worried about it. It's gonna create something for us. So I'm just told that's my reason for questioning everything I'm questioning.
All right, let me do this. Attorney Brown, is there any prohibition from a statutory perspective that says you cannot wear masks or require masks to be worn in government buildings?
No, we have not been able to find any statutory prohibition against it, but I hasten to say that you should have some concerns about instituting that policy. It is not popular policy around the state. We have searched ACCG and AMA, who have had attorneys for those organizations also search for us, and they have found few or if any other counties who are taking that approach. As Jarvis said, one problem you have is that if you're going to do it, you need to do it across the board for all your buildings. Secondly, you clearly could run into the possibility of having enforcement problems. I think that's been demonstrated around the country that it does create risk for the point of contact for whoever will be enforcing this. And if you have it across the board throughout your buildings, you probably do not have marshal resources to be in every building. So then have unprofessional enforcement staff doing the enforcement. Those are some of the concerns. And lastly, I would say that if you decide to adopt this measure, you need to do it only for 30 days because it's done within the powers granted through the state of emergency. State of emergency orders only last 30 days. They can be renewed at the end of those 30 days, but you cannot come out of the gate legally and say 60 days. You need to do it 30 days. Right now, the governor has a 30-day order that goes to June 13th. If the governor extends it, you can extend the mask wearing for another 30 days. If the governor does not extend it, then locally, the mayor would need to put in a state of emergency in order to keep the mask going for the complete 60 days. But we are highly concerned. I have spoken with the administrator and with the HR director, and all three of us are concerned about requiring it. We are not sure you're going to get, we're not sure that you would not get compliance without requiring it. I think strongly encouraging it, providing masks, you'll probably have a high rate of compliance. But of course, whether you do it or not is a policy call that's beyond me or the administrator or the HR director. But we did want to share our concerns with you for you to consider.
We appreciate that, Attorney Brown. Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, sir. Just for the record, the municipal building, for the commission go, is different from any other building. That is technically the seat of the government. That is where we have commission meetings. We have the vast number of people, the greater number of people coming to do city business and attend commission meetings and other things as well. So that is a number one standout there. I have no problem with what the attorney said about the 30 days versus the 60. That makes sense. So I will amend my motion to say 30 days versus 60. And again, as far as compliance go, we guard a few buildings in Augusta, Richmond County. The courthouse itself, is done by the chief judge. So that's not in our purview at the moment. The municipal building is. And the other employees and things that we have out there, we can encourage them at all these locations to wear face masks and provide it to them. But I just want to remember these guys that's been out there working, inspecting, digging, trenching, running water lines, supervising water lines by contract. These folks never did start working. So the bottom line is, and I didn't hear an outcry about protecting them. So the bottom line is we need to do this at the municipal building, and that's still my stance on that. 30 days, and that's my amended motion. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We've got an amended motion. Commissioner from the 1st.
Mr. Mayor, I think we need to do it at all of our buildings. And I know that there's some buildings that, a good example, this past Saturday, I was riding by Dice Park and I saw about 150 people out there barbecuing, eating. Nobody had on any masks. Nobody was practicing safe distances. I mean, there's a little that we could do about that. But if someone is entering a building that's operated by the city, then we need to do what we can to protect that person and protect the employees that are working in that building. So 30 days is okay. We need to go to all of our buildings.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. The amendment is for 30 days. And the question is, are we extending this to the other government buildings minus the Judicial Center? Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one final question for this, and maybe I've missed it during all the conversation, but will this require all the employees to wear masks inside the building at all times?
Say that again.
Will this require all of the employees inside the buildings to wear masks at all times?
Administrator Sims, I think the caveats to that would be in those instances where they're sitting in their office alone. There's no requirement to wear a mask when you're sitting in your office alone.
That's correct. As you see now, I don't have on a mask. When I enter the building, I have on a mask, but as far as if you're in your office and you have an office alone, I don't think it will be expected to have on a mask if you're in your office alone.
What if you work 6 feet apart from somebody in a shared office?
That would be different. If you're able to be beyond the 6 feet, but those are some nuances that we would have to talk about or discuss further. Again, my stance has been steady as far as strongly recommending for employees as well as the visitors with the mask or face covering, not making
Thank
it a
you.
requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Commissioner from the 9th. I'm going to come back to you, Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you.
From the
Mr.
9th.
Mayor, I just think that if we're gonna consider one building, we gotta consider them all. So, I mean, if you're gonna do 30 days, you can't just do, in my opinion, you can't just do, I can't support doing the just one building and you leave the other people out to kind of think for themselves, so to speak. So, if you care, if it's that important, it ought to be that important all the way around. It can't be important downtown, south side or west side. It got to be important all over. It don't even make sense to say we're gonna protect or we worried about this area of people coming in, because people coming in all our facilities. So I can't support it. That's my opinion. So thank you.
All right. I think, again, we've already made one amendment to the original motion. That's for 30 days to be consistent with the governor's executive order. There's currently a press conference that's taking place right now where the governor is going to likely extend the closure of bars, nightclubs, and those types of facilities. And at the same time, I think that we've already seen in his previous executive order, the governor's indicated that if you're out in public, you should be wearing a mask. You should continue to social distance. The governor's also provided guidelines through the state licensing board, cosmetologists, et cetera, that if you're going into those facilities, you have on a mask. And so for us to couch and or politicize this, it's not necessary. At the end of the day, any of our front-facing facilities that people are coming into to conduct business, they should be included in this motion. The municipal building, the Walker Street building, the planning and inspections building over on Marvin Griffin Road, the satellite location for the tax commissioner and utilities office on Peach Orchard Road, as well as the one on Washington Road. Those should be included in this because they are our primary front-facing facilities, and they need to be included in this motion from an amendment standpoint. And then we need to vote on this and adopt this for a 30-day period of time with the expectation that if necessary, we'll continue to extend that beyond 30 days. That's what I would encourage us to do.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. From the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Coming back to you, Commissioner Sines.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't disagree with what you just said, but I think it does change the nature of the motion. You don't have the manpower, as stated earlier, from the Marshal's Department to enforce this across the organization. So what it becomes now is that it's a strong recommendation, and so as persons come and go, they have an opportunity to do that. Now, I have no problem mandatory for this building, even though I question whether, based on what I heard the attorney says around all of these executive orders that the governor has mentioned, and I'm gonna try to see can I make some sense of this one. Just like I believe he said, we can't do 60 days, we can do 30 days. Also, what has been very obvious in all of the governor's executive orders is we can't make it more restrictive or less restrictive. And so he has never made it mandatory. So can we make it mandatory then? But at the same time, I do think at the end of the day, even if we decide to go with the mandatory for the municipal building, we don't have the manpower to do it across the organization. So I think by default, just the motion probably needs to be considered to make it strongly recommended. Because I do agree all our buildings should be considered in this motion. And so if I need some clarity, Mr. Mayor, if I didn't make myself clear, anybody, I don't mind trying to clarify that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. Each department will have to have some level of enforcement themselves when you're conducting business with the general public. When people are entering in our facilities, I think there's been a consistency at the adoption of the phased-in plan on last week in terms of when we bring folks in and who gets brought in. And so the governor's quote order that we couldn't be any more restrictive or less restrictive than him that applies to general businesses. We're talking about people coming in our buildings, and it is well within our statutory right to be able to put this in as a requirement. It is well within our right to be able to do that. It does not encumber any of the things that the governor had in his most recent executive order at all.
So where's the manpower to enforce it, Mr. Mayor? If we're
Well,
gonna make it all mandatory.
I think the question around enforcement and manpower, while it's an attractive conversation and argument, I don't think it has full merit. It's almost like saying we're not fully staffed in the sheriff's office or the marshal's office. There are things that we're able to do given the manpower that we have. The reality of it is there's an expectation that we're going to do everything we can, Commissioner, from the 6, to provide for the health, welfare, and safety of not just those who are out in the general public, but our employees as well. And so the questions around enforcement, again, while I generally share them, I do not believe that it should stop a very important policy decision.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say this here for the record. 2 things. I go back to the administrator's comment as well from in the office. I don't think he can, it has to be 6. Once if they're 6 feet, they don't from each other, then there's not requirement to wear the mask, and you don't have to have an office. So I don't want to get caught up in thinking that everybody who doesn't have an office has to remain at home doing business. It has to be 6 feet apart, Mr. Administrator. That has to stand. But also, Mr. Mayor, I find it a little interesting that you said you don't think it has merit. I think when you look at the family where the security guard was killed and their family dollar across the country, to say it doesn't have merit and attempt to enforce it, this is a very serious matter. And so I don't think it should be dismissed like that.
Let me clarify and be real clear when I say I didn't say it didn't have merit. I said it's an attractive argument.
You said that.
It's not an overarching conversation or concern from a public policy standpoint. We do a lot of things in this city, and we don't have the manpower to fully enforce and or to see the execution of it. This is just one example of where we raise the concern around who enforces and how well we're going to be able to do that. And so to that end, it has not stopped us from making good public policy decisions going forward. It's just like the smoking ordinance, not smoking in downtown. We don't have 50 people to run around downtown trying to make sure nobody's smoking in places. All right, I'm going to Commissioner from the 4th.
Let me check here. Thank you, sir. For the 3rd time, and hopefully that will be a charm to get this item addressed and put to bed, is that we will have mandatory face coverings in the municipal building and all our other buildings. But the municipal building will be the only one with law enforcement required. And I'm just kind of shaping that in my mind at the moment. If the desire is to do it with all the buildings, we know we don't have the enforcement. We just know that. It could be random coming through this kind of thing like that, and the employees asking people to put a mask on. As the tax commissioner said, that their folks would be asking folks to put a mask on to do business with them in their location. So let me restate that again. We'll have mandatory face coverings in all our buildings for the next 30 days, with the municipal building being the one with martial enforcement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we've got a motion that's been amended and a second. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark,
No.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy,
Yes.
Mr. Franham,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Syed,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams. Mr. Dennis
Yes,
Williams?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes, ma'am, okay. Mr. Marion Williams?
He's muted.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
That motion carries 8-2 with Mr. Clark and Mr. Marion Williams voting no.
Attorney Brown. Attorney Brown. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Now that the commission has approved this policy in an effort to give weight to the enforcement, it would be advisable that this policy be converted into an ordinance that has enforcement powers. This is a public building. People do feel strongly about their rights and constitutional rights to enter public buildings as citizens of the state and citizens of the public. We suggest that this policy be converted into an ordinance.
Attorney Brown, that was the intent from day one.
Okay, and
when it was brought to you, that was the intent.
No, you know the intent, Mr. Mayor. Hold it now. You can't. Am I on or what? So,
Attorney Brown, continue.
Okay, and also in terms of, I had my hand up, but I did not get recognized. To Commissioner Son's concern, the governor no more restrictive, no less restrictive executive order expires at the end of the day on the 13th. Therefore, we would recommend that our policy and our ordinance began at 12:01 on the 14th to not run into conflict with the governor's executive order. He did not extend it. He did not extend that portion of his order to the June 13th. So we would not be in conflict with the governor's order beginning at 12:01 on the 14th. But we certainly believe a policy of this magnitude need to be, as you said, in the form of a approved ordinance on the books of Augusta.
Attorney Brown, this should be a temporary ordinance effective for a 30-day period of time that we could come back and revisit as this pandemic persists. All right, Commissioner from the 9th.
That's not what we voted on, Mr. Mayor. We didn't vote on the ordinance. It's a policy that the commission voted on, and you can't just change it to ordinance because you feel like that or because you think that's best. Now, I disagree with that because the enforcement part in the municipal building versus our other buildings, you're gonna have private people coming in. Even in our municipal building, I think our marshals are gonna be challenged with this. May even be a lawsuit. There are a lot of people don't believe that this epidemic is what it is. A lot of people think that, you know, it's just something that just happening and they don't need any protection. So we're gonna end up in a bad situation now, trying to correct something that's gonna end up worse than what it really is now. So now our legal mind just told us, we paid Mr. Brown to give us the advice. He had told us before we took their vote, the pros and the cons. We still took the vote. We still voted to do it. But you can't just turn your head now and change it to something else that we didn't vote on, because we realize now we should have talked it through some more. So I'm sorry. I mean, that's crazy. I'm not gonna put the people at risk, put the marshal at risk. We're gonna create, this thing is already wild. We're gonna create some more disturbance in this community because of this crazy vote that the commission just took a little while ago about nothing. When you're talking about parks and recreation, we don't know how long this thing gonna be going, Mr. Mayor. We know it's gonna last for 30 days, then that'd be one thing. We don't know. You're gonna continue to have the mask for now on? You're gonna continue to have the mask until somebody says it's gone? Your president said it's gonna be leaving in 15 days or 20 days. It ain't left yet. So who gave us the authority to say it's gonna be here longer, or not be here longer? That's crazy. We're not really thinking about the general public. We think about ourselves. Man, this crazy. I don't know what. That's all. I ain't got nothing else. I'm through.
Okay. All right, Attorney Brown.
Yes, sir.
What do you need from the commission?
Well, if you do not want to attempt to create an ordinance today, I would suggest that that be on the agenda for Tuesday, and the ordinance be drawn up in line with the policy for all the buildings and for a period of 30 days, which would be renewable.
So I think we're going to get a motion for that right now. All right, to recognize Commissioner Forth.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
you said you kind of, how could I say this? You kind of preset your question. You said if the commission don't want to try to get an ordinance today, explain what would be the process to initiate an ordinance today, a temporary ordinance.
We didn't know which way the commission was going to go with this policy, or if it was going to approve the policy or for what buildings. So we have an ordinance in basic draft at this time to begin on the 14th of this month.
So may I continue?
Sure.
So, Mr. Brown, in anticipation of whichever way you felt the commission might go, you have something that's kind of drawn up. I would like to hear what that is, if it wouldn't take too long to read it, and if and maybe we can get that approved as far as our first vote. Obviously, it's not going to be unanimous, so it will require 2 readings. So obviously, if we could hear that, if I can get our chairman to engage us in allowing you to read that, I would request that.
I think that's an excellent idea. In lieu of that, let me say this. I think what really is needed at this point is a motion to adopt temporary ordinance implementing face coverings in government buildings pursuant to what's already been discussed. I think that's the basic motion.
Would you agree with that, Attorney?
Attorney Brown.
Well, I know we on a public airwave at this time to try to give you the best legal advice I can, which usually should not be in public. I would say, because this, without a doubt, will be controversial, and I would be extremely surprised if we do not get a constitutional challenge. And because we expect potential litigation from this, I think we need to go strictly by the book. And technically, an ordinance, if you're going to have an ordinance passed, it needs to actually be before you. The state has
exactly right. That's exactly right.
The state has
Mr. Brown, I don't disagree with you on that. So I will request to our clerk that we put this either on the next agenda or the next special call meeting. And but also I would just caution our staff and our attorneys and our commissioners. This is just my personal thought. You can also invite trouble. So I would just caution on that as well. So but bottom line then, I totally agree. So my request here is to the clerk to put this on the next agenda as or we on the next special call meeting, if there's a special call meeting, to adopt the ordinance for the face covering for the next 30 days.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. from the 5th.
Are we going to have face masks at the sites for people who come and don't have face masks at each of the sites? That might be a Chief James question.
Commissioner, we at the point in time that this body adopted the phased in reopening, we explicitly talked about the expectation that the general public would be required to wear masks coming into the building. In the event that someone showed up and did not, we would have a small supply that would be made available to those individuals that could be handed out at government buildings. That was explicitly stated at our meeting, at which point in time this body moved forward to adopt the phased in reopening plan.
Yeah, the stock is available.
Mr. from the 5th, you still have it.
I'm good, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner from the 9th.
Small amount of mass for the building. If you're gonna do that, then you got to be prepared for whoever comes, not just a small amount. You're asking people to wear. The average person that concerned about this ought to wear a mask. I got the N95s, the painter's mask, really, but I got those. Supposed to be the best ones, but all of them ought to be good. But you can't eliminate. I mean, you can't limit the amount that you have and tell other folks, "Well, I don't have any more." We got to be equipped. Now, if you're gonna do this, first of all, this ordinance thing finna get me. I'm finna get hyped up by the ordinance that the attorney did. We didn't instruct the attorney to draw up an ordinance, and if he had something previous written down, and then it wasn't in front of us, somebody done had a meeting before the meeting. So since that didn't happen, I'm going back to the mask issue about whether or not we're gonna have sufficient amount of masks at every site that we asking people that come in the building with one. So here again, enforcement, supplies, all that thing we hadn't even talked about. We just throwing stuff in the air and see what stick and what falls down.
All right, thank you. All right, I think, Madam Clerk, this is going to be on the next scheduled agenda, absent there being another special call meeting in terms of the conversation about drafting an ordinance.
Is that to authorize the attorney to draft the ordinance? Is that what's going on the agenda, or is the ordinance? I'm not sure what we're.
All right, so I think
the process.
I think the motion here is authorize the attorney to draft an ordinance. That's what the motion is today, and then we'll have that brought before us at our next meeting, whether it be a special call or the 19th.
Mr. Mayor, is that motion been made? Commissioner Sides made the motion?
That was what he was making. He asked a question, series of questions.
Golly, boy, I tell you what.
But if you want to fully make that motion, Commissioner from the 6th, you certainly can.
Commissioner Sides, it was his item. I let him make it.
Yeah.
I did not put that in. I did not put that in the form of motion. I made that a request to go on the agenda, which is not a motion and not required for this. I made for approval. I made a request to go on the agenda to the clerk. To either to go on the next commission meeting or the next special call meeting. That was my request for an agenda item. To approve that as an ordinance.
Well, I think you see you need to make it, Commissioner, because I don't have it all in my head, Mr. Mayor. If you're gonna do it, you say you need to go to make so he can bring the ordinance back, because you just put it on the agenda from the beginning. Then you're gonna still have to go back and do the ordinance as a result of the next meeting.
Yeah.
The motion now is to give him the authority to go and bring the motion back at the next meeting, the ordinance back at the next meeting. That's the motion that needs to be made.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So move.
Well, y'all still ain't learned the rules yet, have you?
The clarification on that is Commissioner from the 6th is motion to task attorney with drafting an ordinance for face coverings and bring it back at the next meeting. That was the motion.
And Mr. Mayor, could we specify, is it going to be at the special call meeting or the regular meeting?
I think given the phased in, this needs to be at a special call meeting.
It'll be at the 12:30 meeting then.
Right.
Okay. I didn't hear a second. Did we get one, Mr. Mayor?
I second it.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Mr. Clark,
No.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy,
Yeah.
Mr. Franum,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Sure.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams. Is he muted, sir? Mr. Mayor,
Who is that?
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Gone.
No.
He's out. Mr. Marion Williams.
Not
No,
sure.
ma'am.
That motion carries with Mr. Clark and Mr. Marion Williams voting no, Mr. Dennis Williams out.
And I'll check out now and take a break.
All right, Madam Clerk, is there any other business before us?
No, sir. That's it.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, Chairwoman Davis, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our next meeting was supposed to be at 11 with the subcommittee to review the process for administrator and the job description. Let's take let's get back to this meeting at 11:50, and then whoever's going to be in this meeting, just make sure you're back at 11:50, please. And this will give time for people to get off of this meeting if they want to. Does that sound good?
Madam Chair.
Everybody should just hold here. They're gonna move us into a breakout room and then they'll bring us back, okay?
Okay, 11:50?
Yep.
Commissioner Hassan?
No, we're gonna break out. We'll talk.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, they're gonna move everybody into the breakout room. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Davis, I believe we're ready.
All right, thank you. So Madam Clerk, let's call this meeting to order of the subcommittee to review the job description and recruitment process for the position of the administrator, please.
Yes.
I believe we have all the chairs except for Commissioner Dennis Williams.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need to do a roll call or we good?
No, we can just note that Ms. Davis, Mr. Fenoy, Mr. Sias, and Mr. Marion Williams is in attendance with Mr. Dennis Williams out.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. And the process I think would be the best today to just move through this. Everybody got from Ms. Bonner the job description and then the recruitment process on their email. So I hope you have that or have looked through it. Let's start with the job description, please. And let's go through and see. I mean, I've read through it. I don't really have any specific changes or suggestions, but I do want to hear from y'all. The one thing I wanted to just kind of throw out there is we always say that we're going to have an annual review, and we never do that, really. I think we've done that once. I didn't know if we want to add that in just to really make it a part of, and Wayne Brown can help me with that, make it a part of either the job description or the recruitment process. I don't know where it would fit the best, but I think we need to have that in writing that we will do an annual review of the administrator. So what are y'all's thoughts?
I agree, Mayor, that it should be maybe not in the job description, but be written in. Well, whoever comes in know that's an annual situation.
I agree. And you know, we went out, we contracted that out. I'll get you, Commissioner Sias. We contracted that out last time. I don't think that's necessary. I think we could do that, you know, through HR and the commission and the mayor. So that's just my thoughts. And we could go through that later, but Commissioner Sias?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have no problem with agreeing to that, but we have to have a process of how we do that. That's what we've been missing in this whole thing is if we approve it, we need to also approve a process at the same time.
Okay, what if we can, you know, move this forward next week, hopefully to move forward with however we're going to, if we have any changes today or whatever, and we add that to it, that we get a process brought back to us for an annual review.
Sure, and that's not that complicated.
Right.
But it has to be out there in advance in a process so that any administrator knows what the bar standards are. And so that it knows and know whether if it's going to be a hodgepodge, but what the commission decides to come up with, that frightens me. If we use kind of a more of a standard judgment saying that we can maybe make a couple of tweaks to, I can live with that. But if we come up with this hodgepodge thing, how that works, so that will frighten me. We need to have a good defined process. Thank you.
I agree. So back to the job description. Anybody have any suggestions or changes, additions? Y'all just let's just go through one by one and let's see. I'm going to call in the order I see. Commissioner Marion Williams, you have anything? I'll get you, Commissioner Hassan.
Let's see, am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think the only thing I would like to see that they have experience in this job versus being brand new. See, you get a new person that's never been an administrator. Some people are managers. Our government is set up, whether we're lacking or not, as an administrator. And that's what people need to understand that they applied for. There are a lot of managers who will apply for an administrative job and come in here and want to be a manager because that's what they're used to doing. So we got to understand that the administrator takes out the will of the mayor and the commission. And I don't want to get into all of their duties, but they're totally different from a manager and administrator. So we need to specify what we're looking for. We're looking for an administrator. And we're looking for an experienced administrator, someone who's been in this position before with at least 3 to 5 years experience, I would think.
Yeah, and it does say on there, Commissioner Williams, 5 to 8 years of experience.
Well, I can deal with that. You mentioned something, I may be jumping the gun. You mentioned something about the evaluation, but I remember in all the 4 administrators I've been through that even there, as far as the law would allow, we could look at their health history to make sure that the law of light is go but so far. But
We're losing, we've lost you, Marion. Marion, we've lost you. Just mute your mic, and I'm gonna come back to you. Okay, I'll come back to you because we lost you for some reason. Commissioner Hassan.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Chair, before I forget, if you get an opportunity, I know where you are now, but going back to key responsibility and performance standards, there's something in there I'd like to address in that when you get through what you're doing now, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
But also, with Commissioner Williams, it seemed as though, and I'm sorry, I hope he didn't make it back. I think he was saying 3 to 5 years as is not necessarily work related. You know, you could be around it. I think he sounded like he wanted to, because he was saying as a manager or as a administrator versus one versus the other. So it wasn't necessarily related as much as I felt that he felt that he wanted to be in the seat of power that brought to those particular things, as opposed to just work related. And if that's the case that he was suggesting, if the committee see fit, then they could take out the 5 to 8 years and put 3 to 5 years of job as a manager or as an administrator / manager. I think that's what he's saying. I could be wrong. He's not there to defend his position on that.
Yeah, and we could also add it, you know, a lot of jobs say preferably as an administrator, and I don't know, Wayne Brown can chime in on that, but and I agree, it does need to be very specific as to what our government is. And we could probably maybe make that a little bit more descriptive in the general summary up top, to just specifically say that this, you know, administrator is type of government, and explain more about our government structure. Do y'all agree with that?
Man, am I back yet?
You are.
Okay, I heard what y'all just said. I mean, I don't know why I'm coming in and out, but long story short is, I just think that those things need to be experienced 3 to 5 years and no problem. As an administrator, like Commissioner Hassan said, I can agree with that. If it's more than that, then that's even better. But we need to make sure that they understand, even the headhunters know that we're looking for an administrator versus a manager, because they brought us all, I mean, and I guess we can't discriminate and say, well, we don't want you because you've been a manager and not administrator. As long as they can understand the difference. I mean, because there are a lot of people who still don't understand this stuff. That's where the government was set up.
All right, well, let me make this suggestion from what I'm hearing. So in the general summary up top, and then I want to hear from Wayne Brown, that we really specifically define our structure of government in that general summary, and really more specifically of the administrator as far as who they answer to. I mean, it does say reports to the mayor and commission, but maybe get more specific. It's very clear as far as the administrator, because this is a different type of government. And then on the required minimum qualifications, 3 to 5 years, preferably as an administrator, you know, in an administrator type of government, or however we need to word it, and then continue on with the rest of that description of experience.
I agree.
Who was that, Sammy?
Yeah,
Commissioner
yes, I have a concern when we say a person can only, if we are moving to the fact of saying that a person has to have only been an administrator. Administrator and manager, yes, those are different, but basically the biggest difference is uh, uh, it's not that big a difference in my view. So we are really limiting our choices if we go to that extent. And that's just my piece on that. I just don't think we can say, for me, 3 to 5 years as an administrator or manager. Either way, I'm fine with that. With describing the government, who we are is also great. But to say you had to be an administrator versus a manager or vice versa, I don't agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I threw in the word preferably.
Okay.
Wayne Brown, let's hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first, my comment, I just spoke with the administrator. The HR director was alerted to try to be available for this meeting because it's really, technically it's an HR function as opposed to a legal function. I know the HR director and general counsel are supposed to review it after you come up with your idea, but I do agree that you will be severely limited in terms of candidates if you put strictly administrative restriction on the application. I think you can achieve the goal that I hear Commissioner Williams wants to achieve by explaining, and part of the job description is to be an administrator. But the types of things that an administrator does and the skills they need are really identical with those of a manager. The difference is that the administrator does not have the authority that a manager would have.
So,
Okay, so if we can define that, if we can who's that? Is that the mayor?
Mayor.
Okay,
That's me,
Mayor.
the mayor. Yeah. Can I chime in for a moment?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I got you, Commissioner Williams.
So I think what we're more concerned about is function as opposed to title. I understand what the commissioner from the 9th is speaking specifically to, and I think Attorney Brown has raised this issue. The functions are effectively synonymous. They really are. And quite frankly, much of the work. The difference being how our government is structured as opposed to the function. And so I think we can kind of put that in the parking lot and focus in and hone around the job description as you see it. And that piece could be, as noted, that the description should say a minimum of 3 to 5 years direct experience as a city manager or city administrator. And again, you're capturing the spirit of that. I'll also add this. Do you want to bring in the HR director to be a part of this conversation?
And I'm fine with that. And I know that Jeff says she's in the waiting or breakout room or whatever.
Okay, she was there a minute ago, but she's gone now.
I'm fine to bring her in.
Okay, all right, we'll work to get her in if we need her in here. She was there.
Okay, so Mayor, you just said 3 to 5 years as a
direct
city
experience as a city administrator or city manager.
Okay, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're saying the same thing. I don't know why we're going around the circle. Excuse me. I think we're saying the same thing, Mary. I think we're going around the circle with this, but I think we need to specify to the applicants that we are an administrative style of government. I'm not limited to just people who've been administrators. A manager can come in, he or she can come in for sure. They're a great candidate, but they need to have the understanding when they come in what their job duties are, and not as a manager. Because what they're used to doing, what they'll continue to try to do. And you got no problem with trying, but they need to understand that our government is set up as such as the charter has directed it. And we don't understand that a lot of cases, but I'm not limited to just somebody who's been an administrator. If you can come in and do the job, that's fine. So we can get past this. There's no holdup with that.
Okay.
We need to have 3 to 5 years or 5 to 8 years experience, whatever experience is gonna be fine. With the understanding that we're looking for an administrator for this position. If you're a manager and you can be an administrator, that's fine. So ain't no problem with that.
All right, and the HR director is in, so let's recap what we just did. Commissioner Fenoy, I'm sorry, I did see your hand up. Go ahead. Commissioner Fenoy, unmute your mic, please. Are you on the ground?
Can you hear me?
Mia, where you at?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
All right. I think that if we put out, if we look at the job description, then whoever is applying for the job will know whether we are looking for an administrator or a manager. I also think that we should not put 3 to 5 years experience. The whoever get the position, we will interview. And if a person has a year of experience and we are satisfied with that person, then I don't think that person should be excluded because they only have a year of experience. So I think that if we're gonna put years of experience, it should be as an administrator or a deputy administrator.
Okay, thank you for that. Is the HR director? I can't see you. Are you on?
She's on, Chairwoman.
Okay.
Ms. Rooker?
Okay, I see you. Ms. Rucker, can you unmute your mic, please? You there? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, really the two main things we are looking at the job description for the administrator that we want to just kind of add to, I guess, and make a little bit of changes, but to be more specific as far as the administrator, our administrator type of government, and that could be in the general summary, just to be more specific and clear on our structure.
I'm listening.
Okay. And then we've talked about just at the bottom on the experience too. Commissioner Fenoy said 1 year. I think in this type of large government that we're in, I still would like to stick with minimum of 3 years. And that's just me. But as and with experience as an administrator or a government or city administrator or manager, and then continue with the rest of what's listed as the experience, I would believe. Those are the two things we've talked about. So what are your thoughts on those?
Okay. As far as being an administrator or a manager, I would agree that you should have at least 3 to 5 years because you want someone who has experience with government, someone who has experience with communication and relationships building when it comes to working with commission and the mayor. So it would be highly recommended from my end that you have someone who has been in a government situation, whether they have been an administrator for a period of time or they've been a city manager for a period of time, simply because you want someone who doesn't necessarily come in completely green to a government setting.
Okay. And I agree with that. And if the subcommittee and the commissioners on here, do y'all agree with just to task the HR director with our legal counsel to make those additions to this job description, and then they'll send it back to us for review?
Yes.
Yes, Mary.
Okay, Commissioner
No.
Sun?
Well, I'm not part of your committee, but
That's
do
okay.
support that. I do
Yeah, you're
support
on
that.
here.
Yeah, I
Okay,
support that.
Commissioner Fenoy, you good?
No, I disagree with that.
Okay.
You want to take so can we get someone to do a motion on that, and then we'll take a vote, and then we can bring it back? Or you don't want to get that formalized with it yet?
No, let's
Ms. Mayor,
go. Let's get it formalized. I'm ready to move forward with this.
So
Commissioner Sias?
So moved.
All right, well, let's formalize that motion, Madam Clerk.
Okay, that's Mr. Marion Williams. He's, and we need a second.
Pardon the interruption. Exactly. Yes, Madam Chair, let's make sure we clarify just what this particular motion is. I know we're going to probably have a series of motions, but just exactly, let's clarify what this one is.
Okay.
Yes.
This one is to define the structure of government, administrative form of government, to modify experience with 3 to 5 years as an administrator and or manager
of a city government.
With the city government. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask just one additional question in there. Just say, for an example, a person had 15 years of experience in a field of government that related to management and or administration. And just for clarity, are we going to exclude that particular individual?
No, that's actually, Commissioner Sias, why I was saying a minimum of 3.
Okay.
As a. Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying is that then we are in no way offering the job to anybody who has not directly held that position.
That should be our approach. That should be our approach. Ms. Chair, want to say something?
Yes.
I think that should be our approach to the commission, to your question. Because I think we're in a great place in Augusta in the last 5 years, and I would say with this current commission, I think we're headed in the right direction. We got to put it on the path that we can know whatever decision we make around administration. We firmly believe if everything is done correctly, that it will suffice us for the next 10 years. So I think we have to think in those terms. I do believe there are good people out there that will take advantage of this opportunity, especially in this environment. We're very serious about what we're doing. And so we have to think about and approach it in that regard, in my mind.
All right. And I'm good with that. I just want to say this one thing, and then I'm going to leave it alone. We can say 3 to 5 years of experience, but also we could run into somebody that had 10 years of related experience that we might really favor or something. So, but we will have excluded that person out. So that's just my touch on that. So 3 to 5 years is fine with me. Thank you.
I got a question, Mary.
Okay, Commissioner Fenoy and then Commissioner Williams.
Okay, if we have a person with 15 years of experience in a city with a population of less than 10,000, and we have a person with 2 years of 15 years experience as a deputy administrator in a city like Atlanta or Charlotte or Philadelphia or Baltimore or Los Angeles, where is the value? I mean, they don't have the person, even though they've been there for 15 years in a small town, they don't have the same, I believe, value that the person that's been there as a deputy less than 3 years in a major city.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do y'all want to add in the deputy administrator as long as manager and administrator? I mean, it's fine.
No.
We're just, we're basically.
No.
No.
All right, so y'all just want manager and administrator.
I
Commissioner
don't.
Williams? Okay, Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, we can go through this like we do everything else all day long. We want
Right.
to. We're looking for an experienced person to come in. We putting the guidelines out there. It's like being a commissioner. If you don't live in your district, you can't run. You've been in the city of Augusta, but you can't run unless you live in the district. Those are the rules. Now, there are plenty of people out there that will be willing to come in and apply for these positions that's got the experience. We don't want somebody brand new. We don't want nobody finna go in the grave. We want somebody that could come in here and we've got to decide on that person with 6 votes. If you can count to 6, that's all that matters. Whether it be brand new.
All right, so you want to stick to your original motion?
Stick to the original motion. I'm saying, Mayor, that I've been related. I've been around administrator for 16 years. If I go apply for a job, because I've been around for 16 years, I'm close to it. I think I know everything about the government, any man breathing. So can I apply? No, I cannot.
All right, well, Madam Clerk, let's vote on that motion that we previously made and see where we go.
Are you gonna second that? Or are we gonna get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ms. Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenor?
No.
Mr. Sias?
Yes.
Mr. Marion Williams?
Yes.
Is Mr. Dennis Williams joining us, Madam Chair?
I do not see him.
Mr. Dennis Williams out. That motion carries 3-1 with Mr. Dennis Williams out.
Okay,
And
so
Madam Chair, just for clarity. Thank you. Just for clarity, these are the things that we are putting together on the description. And then all of this will come back to the commission for a final vote at this committee. Just want to clarify that.
Exactly. These are recommendations from the subcommittee to go straight to the commission.
Okay, so just for clarity, do you want this you wanted to go straight without coming back for review of the subcommittee? You're okay with this?
No.
I mean, my opinion is that if the HR director and legal can get together and formulate what we just put in there and it's sent out for review of the commission prior to our next Tuesday meeting, give everybody time to review it. We'll discuss this again on the floor on Tuesday.
Okay. All right then. Good enough.
All right. So let's move on to the recruitment process. All right, I have a couple suggestions for us to discuss, and then I want to hear from everybody else. So looking through to number 4, I think I want the commission to be heavily involved in this process too, but I also think the mayor should be included with the commission. So on number 4, recruiter headhunters shall meet with the commission and the mayor for clarifications and details. That's what I've seen happen in the past.
That includes the commission included it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and
so when you say the commission, you're talking about the commission.
Yes, I mean, in the past, it was done a little different, and it's at the discretion of how the commission wants to do it. Because at 5, the mayor was always able to narrow down the candidates that the commission sent forward. So while they weren't a part of 5, the commission wasn't. They were 4. So that's how it was done. That the headhunter would meet with them all together, but then the commission would narrow it down, send their recommendation to the mayor, because that position gets to narrow down and present his or her final recommendations for a vote.
Okay.
Well, why don't we?
Commissioner Sias?
No, I need to slap my hand. I just spoke out of turn. Thank you.
It's okay. We just want to get through this. We're good.
Yeah. Why don't we just take number 4 and say we meet with the headhunter and all of us. See, here's the one problem with number 4. If we do it the way it's said, then it becomes a public meeting. We have to, I think we should break that down so that we can do that. Well, if it's personnel, maybe we can do it in private. But as long as we can do it in private, I would say we ought to put together if it can be done in an executive session or so. And then for number 5, we move on and we've all selected that crew together, the top one. And then we go from there and select the one with interviews. And I would suggest then the interview process includes the mayor and commissioners, not from one and then the other or vice versa. But it should be a joint process all the way through. So 4 and 5, in my view, should be a joint process.
Yes, sir. Madam
Without
Chair.
all this 3 and 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's asking
Madam Clerk?
because the recruiter did meet with each member of the commission and the mayor initially to do exactly what it says for clarification and detail of Augusta visions, goals, and objectives. So everybody was included in that process. 4.
Which number was that, Ms. Bonner?
That was number 4. Everybody is included in that. The recruiter does meet with everyone on the commission. That's why I said the mayor was included.
Okay.
They're just trying to clarify and so that they could get an understanding of the vision of Augusta from everyone. And that may differ from one to the other, but I'm sure you can come up with a majority. At 5, at 5, that's when the recruitment process is completed and that the candidates are selected.
Well, in my view, when we get to number 5, somewhere in between the commission, somewhere in between number 4 and 5. Let me ask this question, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Since this is the administrator, normally we have HR or the administrator, somebody narrow the candidates down. Now we have 25 candidates. What are going to be our process to narrow that down to say 10? And then from there, that's when I think the commission, including the mayor as a group, should sit down and then start working through that and select who we want to interview. So I just think we need to get one more piece in there somewhere of the narrowing down. Now, it's the expectation we're going to have a whole bunch of people with 3 to 5 years experience.
Madam Chair, this is the
okay. Hold on. All right, hold on. Can everybody, let's mute your mic except for, let me go to Madam Clerk first and then the mayor.
What Commissioner Sias was referencing is the recruiter. If there are 25 candidates, then the recruiter would narrow those down to 12 candidates for the commission to evaluate. And
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's there. And the recruiter will meet with the commission to narrow down to the top 7 candidates to present to the mayor. And then the mayor takes it from there.
Not taking anything from the mayor, our esteemed honorable mayor. I'm saying at that certain point when the recruiter finishes, it should become a joint process.
Yeah, and I agree. And let's go to Mr. Mayor, please. Oh, sorry, Wayne Brown, I'm gonna come to you after the mayor. Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Can you go to the attorney before you come to me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, are you saying no?
No, I wasn't raising my hand. I was scratching my head.
Oh, okay. All right,
no,
Mr. Mayor, are you raising your hand or scratching your head?
Hit it with a rock, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
I've got a brush over here for the attorney if he needs it. What I'd like to offer is consistent with what Madam Clerk has indicated, and that is in this process, that is the intent behind having a recruiter. They'll do the initial vetting, and if we say bring us back the top 10 candidates, then we'll go through and conduct interviews of those top 10 candidates and call a list down to, from that 10, our top 3. And so I think that's, consistent with what has happened in the past in the Augusta Commission. I think I'm okay with that.
I agree, but now it's saying 12 to 7. So are we sticking with 12 to 7, or are we going to 10 to 3?
No, the recruiter, he presents the 12 top candidates for evaluation. And then the commission gets with the recruiter. And then they will narrow down the 7 that will be presented to the mayor to select the 3 for presentation to the commission.
Okay, but I think what we're saying, and Commissioner Sias, why don't we, recruiter will meet with the commission and the mayor to narrow down that list. We want to be joint all the way through. Yes, Commissioner Son.
But that's not, now, and I appreciate what we've done already, but what we got before is that the commission voted on this one, and they voted to let the recruiter, just if you got 100 candidates, the recruiter will drill it down to 12. Once he gets to 12, then he comes to the commission, say, here are my top 12 candidates. The commission get together, and I'm gonna be very clear here, in the absence of the mayor.
No, you need to come back down.
And then once you get that, then you pass the 7 on to the mayor. The mayor's not involved when it gets to 12. He's involved when it gets to 7, and that's when out of his 7, he will present as many as 3 candidates to the commission. If any of those, none of those 3 is, and one of those 3 will be his candidate of choice. The other 2, if we don't get, you've been through that process before, we get nobody of those 3, it starts over again in terms of other candidates that you may have in hand. So between the 12 and the 7, the mayor's not involved in that.
Well, Commissioner, we was talking about a whole new process.
All right, hold on, Commissioner Sias.
No, the process is here. Number 5.
I ain't arguing with you. I'm just saying that we were looking at changing it.
Well, that's a commission action, then now. Is our commission voted on this one?
Right, and all of this will be a commission action.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, these are recommendations from the committee, and it might not pass, but we're vetting this so that something is brought to this commission next Tuesday for us to move forward.
Well, let me back up. This particular part here is your code. It may not be, the numbers may not be your code, but your code says this. So you're about to change your code now. No, your code say that, Commissioner.
That can be changed.
You're gonna change the code just for something okay. Well, I want you to know it's your code.
Hold on. Wayne Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this in the code as it's written in on number 5?
Not exactly. The number's not exactly as it is written, but yes, this is more than a temporary process, a recruitment process. It is a code provision that goes along this process.
So it is part of the code. So if we changed what Commissioner Sias was talking about, we'd have to change the code?
Sure.
You would need to amend the code.
Yes.
And that's with 8 votes on the commission?
No, 6 votes.
6 votes.
6 votes will change the code if you want to make a code change, and you would have to go through the entire code changing process to do it, which in itself takes about 8 weeks.
Ooh.
Unless you have unless you have unanimous consent.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. Okay, so let's go through 5 and see if we're making any changes to clarify this. And I want to hear from the mayor again too after I talk to the chairs. Anybody?
Question, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I'm hearing, well, the headhunter will meet with the commissioner. Will he meet with us individually, or can't we meet collectively to save the time to get with 10 commissioners? Can't we have a meeting, if that's the case, to get our input, whatever? I mean, we should have no input. We can't share with everybody.
Right.
So,
I think, and I need to hear from Wayne Brown, but Commissioner Williams, I believe that can be done in legal since we're talking about personnel. Is that correct, Wayne Brown? And so the recruiter would come in and we would go through these candidates in legal with the full commission and mayor? Is that correct?
If I understand your question correctly, that would be correct.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner
Okay,
Williams
so
is just saying we don't want to do it all separately.
Well, and I, excuse me, but I remember when the headhunter met with one or two of us and one or two more and one or two more. That's going to take a lot of time. That's going to hold the process up. So
I agree.
we can meet it legal and do that. Then that'll speed the action up.
I agree, Commissioner Williams. So let's plan on meeting as a group with legal. I mean, in legal with the recruiter.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other changes or discussion on item 5? Mayor, you good?
Madam Chair, I'm good. No, I'm
Yes.
I'm here. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
All right. Are we ready to put this as a motion to present this recruitment process?
Okay.
So, Madam
Madam Chair,
the
so
one
we
thing
can
that's
clarify.
missing-
Hold on. Let me go to Mayor Pro Tem, and then I'm gonna go to Commissioner Sias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of clarify, I was listening offline and I came online. Are we at the point that the recruiter brings the candidates to the commission, is the mayor at the table with the commission?
So, Mayor Pro Tem, we were just talking about that. The code, so how it's written, do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't.
The recruitment process, the recruiter screens candidates. So if there's 100 candidates, 20 candidates, whatever, screens them and presents the top 12 to the commission. Okay, that's how it's written. Then after that, the top 7 from those go to the mayor and the commission to narrow it down even more.
No, just the mayor, Madam Chair. The mayor gets.
Oh, the 12. Okay, sorry, Commissioner Simon.
Okay, I just
Clear
want to
this up
clarify
right
that.
here.
I just want to clarify. Thank you.
The seven goes to the mayor, not 12. The 7 goes
That's
to
right. Yeah, that's right.
And
And then the mayor shall present as many as 3.
Right.
But bottom line, we all want to be in this together.
Yeah, so it's going to stay as is, right, Ms.?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
All right, so let's bring this, if I can have a motion to bring the
Madam
changes we
Clerk, don't
made.
forget, you forgot me.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Sias, go ahead.
One final thing, real quick. I just think we need to ensure that we know the difference between what's in the code and what's in the job description or whatever that is that we're supposed to be modifying or changing. So it sounds like we're kind of, in my view, we're mixing up what we got on. I don't even know what that come from other than what's in the code. If the job description and the process is not in the code, then what exactly are we changing? Because we're putting a lot of, that was this whole consternation about the commission being involved and all of us together. But I don't see that changing at the moment. The only thing I see changing is this 3 to 5 years.
Correct.
So I'm just, I don't want to use the word confused, but I don't understand where we're trying to go at the moment.
We're trying to go forward because it hasn't been going. This needs to be forward.
That was a good answer.
I mean, you know, this way everybody's had their say. We don't have anything else to say. We're going to present this as a motion if I can get one for the process. And it's time to hire a.
I'll move.
Well, the process has already been approved by the commission, Madam Chair.
Okay.
What we're moving forward is the modified job description. And you have.
Okay, and then I think.
That's it, basically.
You have a motion, you already have a vote, an affirmative vote on that.
Perfect. Okay, and then I think we also need a motion on the floor to move forward with hiring the recruiter for the agenda on Tuesday.
I beg your pardon, you.
Wayne Brown.
Yes, ma'am. Like Commissioner Sias said, the only thing you've already voted on modifying the job description a little. The only thing I think left to do, if you need to do it at all, is place on the agenda to hire the recruiter.
Okay, and then make those changes to the job description.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Do I need to
Commissioner
make a
Sykes,
motion?
we just wanted to spend more time together, that's all.
Okay, Madam Chair, and so now,
Okay, hold on.
you want the recommendation to come from this subcommittee to move forward with the hiring of the recruiter?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so I'll need a motion on that to put on the agenda as approved by the subcommittee to move forward with hiring. Okay.
So move.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Okay, Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy,
He's muted. I can't tell if he's there. I don't see a ceiling.
okay.
That was good.
Well, you gonna be standing up committee. I know you gonna sit down committee. Right?
I'm gonna vote yes, because I don't want Madam Chair looking at my ceiling.
Okay, Mr. Marion Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that motion carries with Mr. Fenoy and Mr.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Oh, he's back.
He's up.
Okay.
I was
He's
listening
awake.
to line there, Richard.
Okay. That motion carries with.
All right, good job, committee. We're ready to move forward. We did something.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair,
All right,
I
let me
wanna
go
go
to
back to-
Miriam first, Commissioner Williams,
Okay.
and then Commissioner Hassan.
have we got are we gonna take 6 more months to get a recruiter? I mean, how that work? I wanna know that should be already in place, but if it's not, where are we with that?
Will that be a question for the, hold on. Is the
HR.
HR director still on?
There should be HR.
Yeah, hold on. Is Anita still on? If you can unmute your mic. Ms. Rucker? Yeah, here she is. Can you tell us the time frame if we approve this next Tuesday, please, to get this moving, to hire a recruiter?
Well, I believe if once you approve it, I'll begin to work on it immediately with your list of, and once you select your recruiter, I'll reach out and get the process started.
Okay, and how's the best way to?
Madam Chairwoman.
I know. Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So I'm gonna walk us back here in terms of a couple of items here. We've agreed that there are some substantive changes to the job description that will be drafted and be prepared and ready for the next commission meeting, which is on 19 May. At that point in time, there's also a motion that will be taken to go ahead and hire the recruiter. And included in that should be us deciding that we want to complete this process. Today is 12 May. We want to have this process completed, what I would anticipate, not later than 31 July. The entire process completed, not later than 31 July.
I agree with that.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, can we put that in the motion, please? Do we have to amend it?
Amend it just to add, yeah, the timeline. 7/31. Well, let's just do that on a separate motion since we've already carried that one. And we can simply.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fenoy, Mr. Sayers,
Yes.
Mr. Marion Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Dennis Williams still out, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Fenoy out. Okay, that the process be completed by July 31st.
All right, Commissioner Hassan, did you have something?
I did, and I don't know whether you want to do it today or not, but I bring on where it has key responsibility and performance standards. Your second one from the bottom of that box, you have 15% of the 100% responsibilities. And it says assemble and provide necessary documentation for the mayor and the clerk of commission council to prepare the agenda. In 2016, we changed that for our book, and here, and I'm reading out of the book that what we changed it to. We said all agenda items shall include all supporting documentation, and such shall be submitted to the clerk for inclusion on the agenda for all meetings of the commission. So the mayor is not in that process where the administrator presents the agenda, it goes to the clerk. But on here, you got 15 responsibilities, and you are asking the administrator to provide the documentation for the mayor and the clerk of commission, and really it's for the clerk of commission. And we changed that in 2016.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. This is directed to the commission from the 6th. I am not aware of that code change.
I have it.
What's the reference date on where we changed the code to reflect that?
We changed that. The rule is 10701-07-01, and we changed it in 2016. Let me see. I'm trying to find the date here for you.
Now, is that the commission rules or the city code?
Well, that's the same thing for us. The code.
It was done by ordinance.
Madam Clerk, did you say it was done by an ordinance?
Yes. It is 2016.
That's when we went through the rules and procedure changes. And that was I think it was maybe in December of 20. There is an ordinance though. I can send you all out the modified ordinance.
That would be fantastic.
It was when we had the rules and procedure, Commissioner Sides headed up that.
Madam Chair, I need.
Hold on. Mr. Mayor, are you done?
For now.
Okay, Commissioner Williams.
I don't see a date in the book.
I just need to get an understanding, Madam Chair. Now, when the administrator prepares an agenda, it goes to the clerk for sure. But the mayor don't prepare no agenda. Does he get a copy of that? Or what? I mean, because he don't prepare the agenda. I'm trying to get an understanding.
Right, that's what well, that's what Commissioner Hassan said has changed in this job description from an ordinance that we approved. So we're going to get that sent to us for clarity.
To say the mayor don't even receive it, or the mayor don't prepare the agenda.
Right.
By the clerk.
Hold on, let's go to the clerk. Y'all mute your mics, please, if you're not talking, or to Wayne Brown, whichever is best to answer this. Madam Clerk, do you?
Yes, sir. That was part of the modified changes to the commission rules of procedure. During that subcommittee process that was referred to administrative services, who approved it for commission action, which was taken, I believe, in December of 2016, and that was part of those modifications, and they made several changes. So it was done by ordinance, and I could forward that out to you.
Okay.
May I, Madam?
Commissioner Sias?
Yes, ma'am. The administrator hasn't prepared the agenda in years. That was being done by the clerk, and that was one of the changes that we made because that was not the way the process was being handled. It may have been envisioned that way, but the clerk had been doing the agenda through the Genesis or whatever and any other means possible, because that's where the commissioners have always submitted their agenda items to the clerk. We never, since I've been a commissioner, we never submitted them to the administrator or anybody else other than the clerk. So that was a cleanup detail. It wasn't a miraculous change. It was a cleanup item. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So I'm hearing some consistencies. My question is largely around the setting of the agenda, not how information is transmitted to the clerk. That was the original intent of the code and the charter around the setting of the agenda. And that was a function where the administrator has provided that information to the clerk's office and to the mayor. for the setting of the agenda. That was what had previously been in the code.
That wasn't true. That wasn't being done that way either. That's why we changed it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
The clerk sets the agenda. If you don't have it there by the prescribed time in the code, it don't get on the agenda. And has always been a responsibility of the clerk. And I apologize, Madam Chair, for interrupting it.
It's okay.
But I couldn't help myself.
It's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Again, you know, that's one of these Augusta government things, but the clerk, as a rule of thumb, generally does not set agendas. That's typically the chair who sets agendas, but that's why I'm raising this issue. I didn't remember that. She's going to send that information out and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, sounds good.
I didn't remember doing that.
Okay, any other business, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am, that's it.
All right, thank you. Oh, is Wayne Brown raising your head? Are you itching your head? Are you itching your head or raising your hand?
Oh, it's not itching anymore.
I got my hand up, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Once the clerk sends out the rules, which is really which was codified back in 2016, I presume that you will have the HR director and general counsel to adjust the job description accordingly.
Correct. Right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam. Yeah, Madam. So I'm going to get out, but I want to say about the agenda. The administrator cannot set no agenda. Neither does the mayor. The clerk does that. If the administrator got an agenda to send out from his or her office, I don't have a problem with the mayor getting it, but they don't set the agenda. The agenda is set by the clerk through the commission, because if the commission got something, and I'm out here and do something, y'all can have it. But if the commission got something, they want an agenda, and the administrator say, well, he didn't put it on there, or she didn't put it on there, then the administrator got more authority than the commission had. So yeah, I think that's in the right place of how it is now. The clerk set the agenda, like it or not, that's her responsibility, or his, whoever gets in that position.
That's right. Okay, and it's clear in the ordinance that we're going to get sent to us. So, all right, thanks everyone. Have a good day.
All right, good day, man.
All right,
thank you.
bye.
Good job.
Thanks.